So my $13 million cents, um, my observation when it comes to abusive relationships, um, from the side of both abuser and people being abused. The one thing that most people don't like to agree on is that it's mainly dominated by one person suppressing the other person's emotions. Alright? So a person is made to feel guilty for having certain emotions or feelings. Alright? It's a constricted approach of life, suppression. And many times the people that are abused, they tend to stop feeling, basically, or avoid feeling certain things, because that's sort of the approach that most abusers use to suppress the people that they abuse. A lot of people think it's mostly physical. It's not. It's all psychological. It's um, it's one person trying to control the other person's mind, and in the end the other person's life, including what their dreams should be, what their activities should be, what they should aspire to be in life. And this is especially problematic for girls and women, because society expects a certain type of behavior from women. You know, you get a gentleman and he's always polite to the lady, he opens the door, he does. So there is that sense that femininity is weakness, while men are also feminine because men feel too. So that society's bridge of saying you're a girl, you're a boy. When we grew up, when we were younger, we weren't really aware of the boundaries of the opposite sex. Obviously, any young kid might have a kid crush on a girl, right? I mean, I can tell you in first grade or something, I can remember the girl, call her my ancient first crush or whatever. But you know that girls are different, but you don't put restrictions on girls because of that difference until you start seeing the way society behaves. You start seeing things on television. You start seeing how the parents treat children differently based on gender. And it's kind of a bigger hurdle for girls because they have to sort of cross that extra barrier of hiding um, feminine aspects of their biology, basically, right? I mean, there was a time when someone found a, what was it, the stuff girls use for periods, and in the bathroom, right? I was at school, and after that was found by someone, called the teacher decides to call a meeting in the hall for girls only, of course, to go and teach them about their periods and how they should think of cleanliness and such things. So that already puts this sort of disdain on it, as does religion to a certain extent. You know, that sense of no, this is unclean, that is transferred in modern society, which shouldn't. uh, Girls should not feel weird for having their periods as much as boys shouldn't think it's really that weird to have wet dreams when they start hitting puberty, right? So these restrictions of society where they try to suppress women automatically are an extra barrier when you get to abusive relationships where there is no cooperation, there's no partnership, there is no I do this, you do this, we do this. It's like dancing, it's tango. When you dance with your partner, you're dancing together, right? Your input, her input, you need each other to dance. So that's actually how relationships should be. There might be times you dance alone, there might be times you dance with your partner. Disagreements come and go. People get angry with each other, they make up for it, but people don't end up beating the opposite sex because you've had an outburst, unless you have underlying psychological problems. And this almost every time comes from what children see when they're younger, right? I mean, I experienced abuse when I was younger. I didn't even know that's what it was until I was a bit older, right? So looking at it from that perspective, the hiding the fact that you were a victim, even though you're young and powerless and there's nothing you can do, when you grow up you feel ashamed because now you're grown, you're a man, you should be able to handle that. But when you weren't. The same thing with vulnerable women. When they can't defend themselves physically, they literally just can't defend themselves physically. And if they are trapped in a psychological cycle of suppression, then that's the outcome that the abuser gets. And most of the time, the abusers don't really know what they're doing is wrong because they see themselves as the superiority, the decision makers, the ones that say how things should be. These elements exist obviously in men and women. Men get abused by women, and women abuse men. But most of the time, right, and we should focus on that, it's women and girls that are at the other end of this problem that we have of discrimination. Basically, it's discrimination against the nature of girls and women. I've always said that women are natural leaders. I mean, a woman is the one that raises a child, right? She's the one that has to walk around, for 9 months with a child in her. So women are the ones that raise kids, teach them how to talk by talking to them. Breastfeeding, that's what happens when you're breastfeeding. And what are you doing when you're teaching someone? You're leading. So leading is a natural aspect that women have. It's inherent, but it's suppressed by society because things started to get a bit more physical, right? It needed muscle. And so women over time became suppressed. Women shouldn't do this, dirty things are for men, and so forth. And that's the society that we have, and that does have an effect on the fact that young girls are married off and young boys are expected to be providers at a very early age, sustain the families. You are the man in the house now. And that sort of societal observation is very hard to change. You can't change it in one day. You cannot change people's behavior in one day, because first you have to make people realize that there is a problem with the way they treat others, or there is a problem with the way that they behave. Most people are always in denial. Most abusers don't want to be the abuser. They end up most of the time feeling like they are the ones that are being abused, right? So how do you wake up people at the other end of that spectrum? It's hard. It's a society, and of course now it's a legal obligation to protect young girls. Not saying that boys aren't vulnerable, no, but when young girls are allowed to just be girls, even around boys, from an early age, without the separatism, you girls stand in this queue, you boys stand in this queue, why can't you have the mix? They are all learners, you're teaching them anyway. So that kind of society, behavior in society, it ends up having an effect on the way men view women, the way women view men. And it's difficult for people to sort of discern this. I mean, I did a lot of reading in psychology and went through a lot of grueling obstacles for me to be at this side saying what I'm saying. So it's very hard to make men especially accept their vulnerability when it comes to emotions, and to accept that women can be strong too, right? We always want to view women as the damsel in distress, we have to save women, right? So allocating power in our girls and women, telling them you're strong too, you can do this, you can do that, is one of the basic fundamentals. Of course, you get that, no, this girl is argumentative and so forth, but if you have a strong base, they won't really care about opinions, they will care about facts. And that is what information redistribution is about. And that is what it has instilled in a lot of girls and will continue to instill in a lot of girls. And at the other end of the spectrum, not leave out boys who are vulnerable because of the way society works. You have a lot of emotional suppression and a lot of outbursts. Most of these outbursts are mostly violent, they end up being violent. So you need to counsel people. People should understand that couple counseling or relationship counseling and all of those um, tools need to be given to people. They need to have access to this so that you have the adults learning and understanding more, and then teaching the children better, right? That should be one of the people should not even be ashamed to go to couple counseling or therapy. They shouldn't. They should embrace it as an opportunity for them to work out their differences and their problems. But of course, you get society seeing it as problems, and then people suppress it and act like it isn't there, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's heavy. And not a lot of people have the patience to be there and actually encourage change in the way people are in society. Most people don't care. It's not my child, it's not my sister, it's not my brother, it's not my cousin. Why should I care, right? So it's a holistic approach to counseling society, because it's society that needs counseling. The girls and little boys, they are just normal, and it's society that ends up you know creating this bridge of divide, right? So yeah, let me call this session one. The elephant is everywhere. So yeah, salute.